This is a bit of a different video than my usual fare. I have a soft spot for games that could be best described as visual novels with a bit more of a gameplay focus. As a review of such titles' gameplay mechanics would be rather dry, this is going to be a recommendation video. For each game, I'll give you a brief plot description and what you'll be doing while you play. The first two games I'll be covering today, Ace Attorney and Danganronpa, have the most mainstream popularity of the bunch and are no doubt must-plays for anyone who's into visual novels. If you've enjoyed either of those, buckle up for some more games in a similar vein. And if you aren't familiar with them at all, maybe this will convince you to give one a shot. No worries about spoilers either. I'll only be using footage for the first chapter or so in each game, so you can go into any of these games mostly blind. We'll start off with Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney, the first entry in the Ace Attorney series. You play as Phoenix Wright, rookie defense attorney in a strict court of law tasked with proving your client's innocence with the only thing that matters in court: evidence. Most of the time you'll be dealing with a murder case, so the stakes are always high, in direct contrast to the larger-than-life personalities you face off against in court. During a trial, it's up to you to press the witness for as much information as you can, and use logic to point out whenever the evidence contradicts a statement, slowly unraveling the web of lies until you reach the truth and a coveted not guilty verdict. The first case of each game starts off simple, typically showing you the murderer at the start and leaving it up to you to catch them, but later cases make things trickier by including more evidence to sort through and case-changing testimony coming into play. Later cases will have you gathering evidence on the scene, but the main focus lies in the courtroom battles. There's occasionally a larger narrative at play, but most of the time the focus is on case-specific plots and the huge personalities of the characters you'll meet within. In terms of where to start, the beginning of the Phoenix Wright trilogy is probably the best, but I've heard the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles is also a fine starting point. Next up is Danganronpa Trigger Happy Havoc, the first entry in the Danganronpa series. You play as Makoto Naegi, a totally average high school kid lucky enough to join the elites of Hope's Peak Academy, a prestigious school where only the most talented students are accepted. Things quickly take a turn after you arrive, however, as you and 14 other students find yourself trapped in the school under the rule of Monokuma, who tells you the only way to escape is to successfully commit murder and pin the blame on someone else. Given the right motive, that's exactly what happens in a series of grisly murder mysteries. It's very similar to Ace Attorney in general structure. You're still investigating crime scenes for evidence to use during the class trial, but with an ever-shrinking cast of characters to bounce off of instead of Ace Attorney's rotating cast. Compared to Ace Attorney, however, you have less options to worry about during a trial, usually limiting you to a handful of potential options to narrow down instead of your entire suite of evidence. There are mini-games throughout that theoretically make what would be a multiple-choice prompt into something more engaging, but these tend to suffer from awkward controls and explanations. Thankfully, the murder mysteries are compelling enough to let that slide, as is the overall mystery of why you've been trapped in the school. The static cast gives you a lot more room to get to know them, and a lot of room to get totally crushed whenever they get wrapped up in a murder case one way or another. Starting with the first game is recommended. Next up is 999, 9 Hours, 9 Persons, 9 Doors, the first of the Zero Escape trilogy. You play as Junpei, a college student kidnapped with 8 other people who wake up to find themselves trapped on a sinking ship and forced to play the Nonary game, where they must pass through numbered doors, solve the puzzles found in each room, and find a door bearing a 9 in order to escape before 9 hours pass and the ship sinks. The main gameplay focus is in the various escape rooms you must go through. These are all well thought out puzzles that are usually very fair to the player, not expecting wild leaps of logic, and though they start off easy, later rooms can get tricky. The writing overall is excellent. Getting to know the people you found yourself trapped with, and slowly unraveling the mysteries surrounding the mastermind behind the game and why the game is being played as you solve these escape room puzzles is fun and engaging. And multiple endings leading up to a true ending make moving towards the truth all the more enjoyable. Starting with 999 is recommended. I would recommend the Nonary Games Collection version as the best version of the game, being more broadly accessible and adding a flowchart instead of necessitating multiple full playthroughs, but the DS version is still great. Next up, the Professor Layton series. In most of them, you play as Professor Layton and his apprentice Luke, who go about solving mysteries through the medium of puzzle solving. Admittedly, latent plots aren't the main focus, but these games are often brought up whenever Ace Attorney and Danganronpa are mentioned, and I'd be doing them a disservice not to recommend them here. The locales the duo travel to, the people within, and the wild twists the story takes are appealing, but making it through a latent plot comes with a lot of puzzle solving. Brain teasers, to be specific. There's all sorts of different flavors, from logic puzzles, math puzzles, wordplay, and all sorts of puzzles in between. Your enjoyment of these games will hinge on whether puzzles like this are something you enjoy, as they take up the bulk of the time you'll spend with the game. Even a description like this is likely selling these games a bit short. I'm not usually one for brain teasers, but the Latent series consistently charmed me game after game on narrative and puzzles. You can really start anywhere with this series. Hotel Dusk Room 215 is the most obscure entry on this list so far, and that's a right shame. Taking place in 1979, it puts you in the shoes of Kyle Hyde, a New York cop turned traveling salesman after his former partner's betrayal 3 years prior. As part of Red Crown's side business of finding items that are tough to track down, Kyle is sent to the Hotel Dusk, an ordinary remote hotel. What's anything but ordinary, however, are the people lodged within. They're more than what they seem, and as coincidences pile up, Kyle starts to believe the hotel might be hiding the secret behind Bradley's betrayal. Hotel Dusk plays more closely to an adventure game with a heavy emphasis on detective work befitting Kyle's previous occupation. You aren't a cop though, and despite how it may have sounded, Hotel Dusk is likely the most grounded game on this list. Badgering people and snooping in places you shouldn't will get you the boot quickly, and given Kyle's no-nonsense personality and background, you can easily misstep and get yourself kicked out. It's a very unique experience. Its strong characters, unique presentation, and gorgeous rotoscoped visual style all stand out. If you have a DS, you owe it to yourself to check out Hotel Dusk and its sequel, Last Window. For Ghost Trick, the less I give away, the better. You start the game already dead, a ghost who discovers he has the ability to rewind time 4 minutes before someone else's death and can try to prevent it from ever happening by possessing objects in the environment. Having lost your memories, it's up to you to solve the case of your own death, discover your identity, and figure out how to save the town before morning arrives and you disappear forever. It's made by the same people who created the Ace Attorney series, and there's a very good reason this game is a cult classic. It's absolutely criminal that this game went underlooked. Papers, Please is one of the more gameplay-focused entries on this list. You play as a border inspector tasked with preventing any unscrupulous individuals from entering the glorious nation of Arstotzka. There's not much of an upfront narrative to actively pay attention to. Instead, the game is driven by the ongoing political conflicts between Arstotzka and its neighboring nations and the choices you'll have to make along the way. Some of which are moral decisions, others which affect the political climate. The gameplay system starts out simple but increases in complexity each day. You must inspect the passports and other documents of all incoming entrants and make sure they follow the set of strict guidelines laid out for you within a time limit. Failure to pay attention to the finer details of documents and approving or denying the wrong people will start to result in penalties, leaving you with less income at the end of the day, and your family may suffer the consequences. It's an interesting game that plays with your sense of morality, and while I wouldn't call it fun, it's consistently engaging from beginning to end, no matter how that plays out. VA-11 Hall A, or Valhalla, is somewhat similar in gameplay to Papers, Please, but with a much more relaxed atmosphere and a more flexible system. You play as Jill, a bartender at the titular Valhalla, a remote bar in a dystopian cyberpunk future. You can't make choices that directly influence the world, but being a bartender, you can choose how much alcohol you give your guests, which in turn will affect the things they end up telling you, and sometimes if they're able to make it out of the bar on their own. The focus here lies in the stories of the different people you meet and how everyone fits into this alternate future city. If you're interested in world building, Valhalla creates a rich one with memorable characters. Coffee Talk is incredibly similar to Valhalla. You play as your self-named barista, owner of the Coffee Talk coffee shop in a fictional Seattle, set in a better 2020 than the one we ended up living in. The characters you interact with all belong to fantasy races like elves and orcs, but have problems that are relatable to our everyday reality. You have even less of an impact on guests here than in Valhalla, but if you enjoyed one of the two, you're likely to enjoy the other. The coffee brewing system is also surprisingly deep, with an endless challenge mode that'll really test your brewing chops. If you've made it this far, thank you for watching. I hope you've come away from this video with at least one new game you'd like to check out. If you found something new, share it around. I'd love to see these games get more attention. If you enjoyed the video, I would appreciate it if you could leave a like and/or comment down below, and if you want to see more of these long-form analysis videos, please consider checking out my other content and subscribing for more in the future. Until next time, I'm Forma, and those are my thoughts.